Now on the Income Store live video stream at 560theanswer.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, as we reported on this show, Governor Spalding and his merry band of House and Senate Democrats moving to compete with the Democrats in Virginia, the Democrats in New York, to be the most pro-infanticide party in the country. The four prongs that we reported would be included in legislation to move in Springfield this week are included. Repeal of parental notification, repeal of the partial birth abortion ban, insurance mandate, if you want to sell insurance plans in Illinois, you got to have the abortion coverage, and allow for non-doctors to perform abortions. Bit of a funny moment in Springfield, too, so you get a little bit of a sense of the ruling class mentality. Mike Madigan talking to Illinois News Network reporter Greg Bishop about term limits.
Speaker, the Senate caucus has leadership term limits. The Republican caucus has leadership term limits.
They should have term limits for you.
Oh. Should have term limits for you, the media. Media term limits, not politician term limits here.
Yeah, it's going to be our overlord for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's going very well. So this is a move building off of Benedict Ronner's signing of House Bill 40, taxpayer funding of abortion on demand. This is a move to, as we talked to Cesar LaFleur yesterday, to make Illinois the abortion capital of the country by targeting young people, young women, and minorities in particular, young female minorities in particular. Thus, the Planned Parenthood clinics going up in places like the south suburbs along the Indiana border, majority minority populations. We played, before our discussion with Cesar LaFleur yesterday, talking about the Crisis Pregnancy Center, Aid for Women Pregnancy Care Center that's opening up near that Planned Parenthood clinic in Flossmoor. Played an interview Lila Rose from Live Action did with Dr. Anthony Levatino, just trying to introduce some actual science, medicine about obstetrics into the conversation of partial birth and live birth and all of this ghoulish business that we've been discussing and watching play out over the last several weeks around the country. And got a lot of feedback from it because, people just don't know. I didn't know until I watched the interview, all the details that Dr. Levatino provided in terms of how you actually deal with tending to a female who is in a health crisis while pregnant. And it was really illuminating. So we thought, well, why don't we continue the conversation by getting the doctor himself? And so we have him, Dr. Anthony Levatino, OBGYN. Dr. Levatino, please, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
So we're just picking up on the move in states like Illinois, New York, Virginia to provide for late-term, in places like Virginia, according to the governor, full-term, outside of the womb, quote-unquote, abortions. And it's always couched in two ways. Reproductive rights, number one, and number two, we're talking about cases of health and welfare of the mother. And you tackled the health and welfare of the mother of the patient, one of the two patients, very well. And I just wanted you to address that in that context of these late-term abortions.
Well, if you ask the average person, name one Supreme Court decision, 99.9% of people will say Roe v. Wade because most people don't know the name of any other Supreme Court decisions. And many people, of course, understand that Roe v. Wade basically established abortion as a, quote, right, but don't understand what the ruling actually says. Roe v. Wade set up, remember, and this was consistent with medicine in 1973 when Roe v. Wade was ruled on. it set up a trimester framework. Obstetricians use a trimester framework when we describe pregnancy. Pregnancy is 40 weeks long. And the first 13 weeks is the first trimester, up to about 27 weeks is the second trimester, and 27 to 40 weeks is the third trimester. And what Roe said about late-term procedures is that a state could prohibit abortions in the third trimester. This is 27 weeks until term, unless the woman's health was being affected. Now, and pro-aborts have used this very effectively over the years. I mean, who could possibly be against a woman's health? But lawyers in the audience understand that in law, every single word means something, and what Roe didn't do was define the term health. Now, there's a companion case the same day called Doe versus Bolton, which most people have never heard of. Doe did define health. It includes the mother's physical health, but it didn't say how severe it needed to be, how severely affected her health would have to be to justify a third trimester abortion. What if she had cancer? What if she was going to die? That's serious. What if her blood pressure was up? Well, that's treatable. What if she had a headache? It doesn't say. It also includes her mental health, but again, doesn't specify how seriously threatened her mental health would be. How about she's going to have a psychotic break? How about she's just stressed out? Doesn't say. It includes her economic health. Whoa, how rich do you have to be to qualify for a third trimester abortion? It doesn't say. And it also includes her social health. What in blazes does that mean? I wrote an op-ed recently that may get published about a case I had when I was doing abortions. A 17-year-old high school senior came in and requested and wanted an abortion, and I did it because her reason was she didn't want to be pregnant for her senior prom. So I assume that means her social health. And under Roe, I could justify a third trimester abortion based on that. So this dodge about health has been used for years. Many politicians have said, I'll support your pro-life legislation as long as it has a health exception. They look good because they're guarding women's health, and most people on the outside don't realize that when someone says that, he's actually saying, I'll be happy to support your legislation as long as there's an exception and it's so big, it effectively negates your law.
Right, and so, but then, so people will come back to that explanation and say, well, this is exactly why, doctor, the decision, regardless of where the mother is in her term, this is why the decision should be between the doctor and the woman, and should be provided for up until, I don't know, up until the child can work outside the home, according to some people. But this is why it shouldn't be, the government shouldn't be involved because of all these variables you just described. That makes it even more important that it's just the doctor and the woman.
I disagree, and I disagree loudly. Let me tell you another real-world situation, and you hear this. Well, we have to trust the woman and her doctor. Really? When I was doing abortions in New York, my partner and I, we had a hospital that we were working with on a regular basis where we did abortions on a regular basis. I mean, early ones we did in our office, and that's still the standard of care. But, you know, when they got bigger, it got more dangerous, and we wanted them in a hospital setting for safety reasons, for the safety of the patient. Well, the board of the hospital did not want us doing abortions in their hospital, and told us so. And so we, quote, negotiated with them because we did understand the law. And we pledged, we got them to agree to allow us to do abortions only if they were medically necessary. And using that very same definition I just told you, we just continued doing abortions just like we did before with no restriction at all. All we did from then on was write in the chart, I certified that this abortion is medically necessary and signed my name.
When did
Doctors are an interested party. They're making money doing these things.
Right.
Yeah.
It's how they make their living. I'm not faulting anybody for making a living. But don't sit there and tell me that, you know, that patient's being driven by God knows what forces And meanwhile, the doctor this is how he makes his living, and we're going to leave the decision up to them. We are killing viable, unborn children. A woman is paying a doctor money to kill her perfectly viable, in many cases, unborn son or daughter. And we're going to leave the decision entirely up to them with no state oversight whatsoever. This is absurd.
Well, when did you change your mind? I mean, you've performed over 1,200 abortions in the first and second trimesters. What happened, or when was your aha moment? Not to sound like Oprah, but what happened?
My aha moment. Well, as I tell people, I was very dedicated to the idea of abortion. This is a decision, and I took the same tack you just talked about. This is a woman between, this is a decision between a woman, her doctor, and nobody, including the baby's dad, had anything to say about it. And I was very dedicated to that. I was doing these abortions up to 24 weeks. My aha moment came when my daughter, who was 2 months short of being 6 years old, was killed in an auto accident.
Oh,
You've got parents out there listening to this, and if you have children, you may think you have some idea of what that might be like to lose a child. Unless you've been through this yourself, you have absolutely no idea whatsoever, and I pray to God you never find out. But what do you do after a disaster? I mean, you bury your child and you try to get back into your life. And I don't remember exactly how long it was, maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 3 or 4 weeks after her death. But I showed up at the hospital to do a late-term second trimester D&E abortion. And when I talk about this in front of a group, I describe the abortion so people understand what we're talking about. You have to literally tear a baby to pieces with your bare hands. I mean, it's, using instruments, of course, but that's what the procedure is. And I began the procedure, just routine, tore out an arm or a leg and stared at it in the clamp and got sick. But when you start an abortion, you can't stop. You have to keep inventory. You have to make sure that you get all the pieces, all the arms, legs, internal organs, the head, all the rest of it. Because if you don't, and you leave tissue behind, your patient's going to come back infected, bleeding, or dead. So I soldiered on and I finished that abortion. And I tell people, I know it sounds strange, but I'm telling you it's for real. For the first time in my life, after all the years and all the abortions I had done, I really looked at that pile of body parts on the side of the table that I had just torn to pieces myself. And I didn't see her wonderful right to choose, and I didn't see what a great doctor I was helping her with her problem, and I didn't even see the $800 cash I just made in 15 minutes back then. All I saw was somebody's son or daughter. And after a whole lot of soul searching and difficulty after that, I quit.
Wow. Wow. That's something. I wanted to get you to explain again, because I don't think people can hear this enough so they understand it. The point you made in your discussion with Lila Rose about late-term abortions, and your point about the number of late-term abortions you've had to do to save a woman in a health crisis late in her term is zero. Explain that.
There are times abortion, if you want to call it that, is necessary. If a woman is 8 weeks from her last menstrual period and she has a tubal pregnancy's in the tube, not in the uterus where it belongs. Yeah. It's called an ectopic pregnancy. And you do an ultrasound and you see a beating heart, it makes no difference. You must treat the condition or she is going to die. Okay? So there are times what people would call a quote abortion are necessary to save her life. And that's probably one of the most common situations that we see. Ectopic pregnancies are actually very common. However, when you're talking about the vast majority of problems, when we talk about late abortions in the third trimester or second or third trimester to save her life, a baby is viable. That baby with proper care can live on the outside starting around 22 weeks. There are variations. Some kids who are earlier have made it. Some kids who are later haven't. But around 22 weeks, little over halfway through her pregnancy, that child can live on the outside on its own with proper care. Okay, it's viable. The vast majority, and I worked in a high-risk center, a high-risk university hospital in New York that took care of patients who were in serious trouble with their pregnancies, cancers, severe heart disease, out-of-control diabetes, preeclampsia or toxemia of pregnancy. Many of your listeners know what this is. Typical situation. This is a real case. Woman comes in 27 weeks pregnant, way over the line of viability. Everyone knows, or many people know, that normal blood pressure is 120 over 80. Her blood pressure was 220 over 160. Okay, she was minutes or hours away from a stroke. All right, her pregnancy is going to kill her. Okay, but you know what? It's the pregnancy that's dangerous to her, not the baby. It's the pregnancy. And if you want to save her life, you end the pregnancy, which is exactly what we did. We stabilized her. We did a cesarean section within an hour. She and the baby did just fine. Okay? It's not the baby that's threatening the mother. It's the pregnancy. So when you have a crisis in pregnancy, and especially when it's past viability, which is when almost all of these situations occur, you do a delivery. And I did that for 9 years. I saved hundreds of women from serious problems in pregnancy, and I did not have to deliberately kill a single child in the process. However, we are told we need late-term abortion to save women's lives. Really? Let's go back to that patient. 220 over 160 blood pressure. If you wanted to do an abortion to save her life, a late abortion at that stage of pregnancy takes 2 to 3 days just to prepare the cervix so that you can do the abortion procedure. You know what? When somebody has a blood pressure of 220 over 160, you don't have 2 or 3 days to make up your mind and fix the problem. You've got hours. And this rubbish about how late-term abortion is necessary to save women's lives is just that, because it takes too long in the vast majority of cases where a real medical emergency is involved.
He is Dr. Anthony Levatino, OBGYN. Dr. Levatino, thank you so much for joining us and providing all of this illumination. This is really important stuff and well said. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Happy to help.
Also, too, just a note, the legislation in Illinois, if you want to maybe contact a legislator and say, don't support the bills that we described at the outset of our conversation, House Bill 2495 and House Bill 2467, those are the two bills to make Illinois more pro-abortion, more pro-infanticide than it already is.
And the doctor joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/.